Welcome to Voices in Action, a podcast that raises up voices of individuals that have brought about real and meaningful change in the lives of the developmentally disabled. My name is Angela Powell Johnson, and I'm the Executive Director of North Los Angeles County Regional Center. I'm extremely thrilled today to be joined by Senator Menjivar. She is the representative of California's 20th District, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Senator Menjivar's many accomplishments. She is a Marine veteran, a trained social worker, and a proud LGBTQ leader. She has used her platform to endorse a myriad of issues, including mental health, housing, and the developmentally disabled. And just a quick little story about my first time meeting Senator Menjivar was at her holiday party, which was Harry Potter themed. And I remember this is so much fun. The entire community came out, and I wanted to meet the senator for the first time. So I sought her out and was pleasantly surprised to find a woman that was dressed as Harry Potter with a lightning rod across her forehead. And I remember thinking, this is a kindred spirit. So that was so much fun. But yes, let's go ahead and begin.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So you have been a strong advocate against the Medicaid cuts in our budget, particularly regarding immigrants and the intellectual and developmentally disabled populations. I was curious as to what you think might be the long-term effects of some of these cuts for these populations and what you think should be the values and priorities that really guide decision-making for our vulnerable populations.
What is our North Star, right? I think we try our hardest to find that North Star morally, individually, as legislators, balancing our also personal connection to these items. And sometimes we hit a roadblock, and that's bureaucracy, the red tape. And we come to a decision of, do we try to break down that wall, or do we stop and try to work within? Sometimes it's helpful to work within, but sometimes you have to break that wall down. And I come to this space, yes, from a personal connection, but also just from at my core, wanting to just address any injustices. So when we invest in something, Angela, it takes long time. Procedures are put in place, stakeholders are brought together to put together something, a new program, a new investment. And then when we stop out of nowhere funding that program, a couple of things happen. What happened to all the money that was invested in energy into putting this program together? The reprieve it brought to individuals, whatever that program was. But then if you stop it and you want to start it over again, it's not that easy. So the long-term impacts are not just right now you don't have the service. It can be across generations and so forth. In the IDD population on Medi-Cal, what if their provider, their caregiver, their parent is on Medi-Cal themselves? Is an IHSS worker because they can't work full-time, they have to care for their child. Is a 70-year-old parent who is caring for their grown IDD child, and they're on Medi-Cal and on fixed income. This, if the cuts aren't directly to the IDD population, impact the IDD population, because we know there are added barriers to a family when you're caring for an individual that needs a little bit of more extra TLC, if you will. So it pushes families more into poverty, stress, the mental health, the physical health, the health of individuals. We all know ulcers come from stress and anxiety. You can lose your hair from stress and anxiety, stop eating, so forth. So when I look at these cuts, I look at them through an intersectional lens, and that's why I think it's difficult for me to look at them and say, oh, but we're just doing cuts in this community. No, they intersect everywhere else.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and you bring about really great points in regards to how long it takes to get a process in motion. And if we quickly disrupt something, it just has multitudes of impacts along the way in order for us to actually get anything that resembles this moving forward. So I'm really glad that you brought up those points. 7-1 was legislation that you authored, and it proposed to expand the statutory authority of the Office of Lanterman Ombudsperson. And I guess what I was wondering is what inspired this particular bill? And then also, how do you think that it brings about greater supports and accountability for California's developmental disabled services?
Yeah. SB 471 so far, I haven't had to present it. It's been on consent thus far. Maybe now in the assembly I'll have to present it, but it's gotten bipartisan support because people recognize that we need greater accountability. So I became aware of individuals. I didn't even know what an ombudsperson was when I became a legislator, through the criminal justice area of the ombudsperson for youth in the criminal justice. I have a juvenile hall in my district, so I was getting involved, and I realized, I was like, wow, they don't have a lot of authority. The whole point of an ombudsperson is to have a third party, unbiased individual that holds everybody accountable. You can't be an ombudsperson if you work respectfully for a regional center, if you work for the department, if you work for the state. You can't be an ombudsperson like that. You're always going to be beholden to whoever hired you there, right? So I learned about ombudsmen, and I saw foster ombudsman had a little bit more power. I looked at the ombudsperson for skilled nursing facility and how we got them to get a little bit more power for elders. And I was like, okay, the ombudsperson for DDS, Department of Developmental Services, doesn't have that much authority. And it came out of a story that happened here in my district of homes. And there was an article in LA Times or a couple last year. I can't remember what the entity was called, but these are homes where adult with IDD go live. And we saw an individual that worked there was abusing these individuals. He had been fired from one home and then transferred to another. And there was no red flag. No one caught that. And he continued to bring that abuse to the individuals that lived there. And it was just there. He was flowing under the radar because of lack of accountability. I'm not saying SB 4071 is going to immediately stop that, but it's a step in the right direction to be able to have someone hold entities accountable for the people that we're taking accountability for, holding ourselves responsible and saying, we're going to help this family, we're going to care for this individual. So we're working closely with the department. We're getting a lot of beautiful technical assistance from them. We're hearing, it sounds like they want this bill to pass, just tweaking back and forth on what's feasible. I don't want this to be held up in a probes. I want it to pass. I want it to move forward. And I'm just thinking about families who need to go somewhere if they have issues they want to bring up, and who can be that the buck stops here type of thing.
Sure. And I understand that. So a need for a neutral party that's not beholden to anybody, so there's not any other biases is what I'm hearing. And I do know that case very well. I do know that, it did make it to the Los Angeles Times. With all that being said, I guess in that particular incident, I'm curious as to how the Office of the Lanterman Ombudsperson could have assisted in that particular situation, because I think in that particular situation, it was somebody that was unfortunately terminated, rightfully. And with all that being said, somehow that didn't trail his next place of employment. Just given our labor laws, I know a lot of, California is very tricky in that way. So I'm not sure if the Office of Lanterman
This isn't the end all, right? But when I thought about that, it was another reminder of the lack of accountability. And in my notes, I have my notes for what I want to do in bills next year. And that's an issue I still want to tackle, because then another issue recently came up of not landlords, the managers of these entities opening up a residential facility in one department, getting shut down for inhumane treatment, and then going to a different department and opening it up and getting a license for another kind of residential home. And no one flags that they were put on the blacklist in one department and okay into the other one. 471 it touches, on just accountability, but you are 100% right. There are still a lot of gaps in place when we work with our most vulnerable that need to be addressed, and I will continue to focus on issues like that.
I can't wait to see what else you have in store, but absolutely there are things that we continuously have to improve on. So I'm glad that you highlighted some of those things. With your background in social work and emergency response, I guess I was curious because there are gaps within human services and health. And I'm curious as to what changes do you believe are the most crucial that we need to make to better integrate developmental services along with behavioral health, crisis response?
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's a great question. I think we could take this whole conversation just focusing on that question. I'm reminded of what I learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or Maslow's needs of hierarchy, or whatever. And I remember that triangle, and I think about what our North Star is and what we want to invest in. We can't get to these great, amazing things that perhaps came out of the master plan on developmental disabilities if the basic needs of these individuals are not being met. And the first one should be dignity and a humane way of living, right? And are we supporting their caregivers to have a livable wage? So that's connected to IHSS, collective bargaining, livable wages for them. Do they have a home they can live in? Is it affordable for them? All that I think about is through the lens of my foundation in social work. And I always think about that. I think about asset mapping, and I need to asset map my district. Are there resources available in people's backyards, or do they have to travel across the 101 to go to LA 405 to get those needs? Do I need to address their ability to go to and from places? Through that lens also is it culturally competent? When you go to any kind of services, LAUSD, regional centers, do we have people that are culturally competent, that have the language they speak, not just the language, but the culture behind it? Is it just, I think about, can only speak about my culture, right? It's like, we'll keep 5,000 generations in our home because we're not kicking anyone out. Right? So do the workers that we come to understand that cultural component of it? Or the cultural component is like, there's nothing wrong with my kid. Everything's totally fine. They'll start speaking one day. And do we have compassion to push people in a really approachable way to get to the point they accept that their child needs help? As an EMT, I went into so many skilled nursing facilities. Respectfully, I would never put my mom in a lot of them. Right? But I think about it's not the healthcare worker individual's fault. They didn't get into this space to cause harm. Are the entities providing them the support? Are they hiring enough nurses to have a ratio that is not going to burn them out? Are we paying, is the Medicaid reimbursement rate high enough for them to hire more people? It is so convoluted, and it's not just one thing. I think about regional centers and the employees there. Like, I love the programs that we did on bilingual extra stipends, the school, to get courses and pay tuition. And in the budget this year, we're going to cut part of that. But that is needed. We need more employees in regional centers. Communities complain to us, well, it's because the regional center is burnt out. There's not enough employees. And it's like, who do you blame? You can't start. It's all simultaneously happening. So, through the EMT lens, social worker lens, it's always the intersection. Like, I can't always put the onus on one thing. Can we be fair? Can we just support employees? By default, they will support our community members. And in the health space, that's tied in, especially with the Medi-Cal. The reimbursement rates, right? Are we able to provide enough money for drivers so people can be picked up and come to adult day centers, and so many things like that? Where do you start, Angela? Where do you start? It's a lot, but it's an organized chaos where, I understand this assembly line, and you unfortunately can't just focus on one thing. You're trying to get all these things at the same time. I think I got a little far away from your question, but on the health side, I think when I think about Medi-Cal cuts, or I think about Cal AIM, it's like, does every entity who works with these individuals know about Cal AIM? Do you know that you can help with money to get a ramp at your home, for grocery, a security deposit, for a security deposit, 6 months rent? You can get all these services. Do people know that IDD population more than likely are eligible for Cal AIM services? So it's, how do we get all these great services, the knowledge out there? And we are 120 legislators, amount of State Department employees. I think we need to do a better job and bringing this information forward.
I absolutely agree with you. I feel like stepping into this role for me, it's like taking a bite of the elephant, right? Which bite do you go for?
You start in the trunk, I'll start in the leg. And then we'll meet up. But you need just people everywhere.
But I think that's the most difficult thing about the job, right? Because there's so many different variables. We're looking at mental health, we're looking at behavioral health, we're looking at human service, all of it. And I feel like the different systems don't really talk well with each other. So that's the thing that I struggle for. Developmental disabilities, I feel like it's, in some ways, it's been siloed. So it's like, if you have a developmental disability, regional center is your person, right? It's everything, but it isn't actually, because we're the payer of last resort. There's generic resources. I just don't know how to make sure that all the different.
Do you know we have to run bills? We actually have to run bills to say, hey, your department, you have to work in collaboration with the other department. Isn't that crazy that you have to run a bill to tell a department to work with another department? I don't get it.
I understand. It's the bureaucracy. So I think we share the same sentiment there, where I'm used to kind of just one straight line of getting from A to B. Yeah. And I do feel like sometimes their system, it's a zigzag across, right? So I share that. Thank you. So equity and inclusion have been central to your advocacy. How do you ensure that state policy meet the needs of people with developmental disabilities from diverse cultural, language, and income backgrounds?
I think I can think of a great organization, ICC. They're here in the San Fernando Valley. Fernando, he leads this group of some are monolingual Spanish-speaking individuals, right? And I can remember I did a Zoom once with them. There was like 380 people that signed on to the Zoom all across California. And I had to do it all in Spanish because these were señoras who were just like, these are the needs we need specifically for the Spanish-speaking community, from Redwood, all the way down to San Diego. And I loved that these individuals were so engaged, regardless if they understood the language predominantly being spoken or a government that maybe they're not familiar with, but there's an organization that was created to help them along. And DVU, works hand in hand with ICC. So many acronyms, y'all. I know it's difficult, but try to keep, I don't even know what they stand for. Don't even ask me what ICC stands for. I think what I mentioned in the beginning is the intersectionality piece. I am never going to run a bill that excludes anybody. And I think I made that very clear when I didn't go up on the budget this year, because it was othering other people. It was saying yes to you, no to you. And that is a moral line that I refuse to cross. I am not naive to say that cuts need to happen. I voted last year, even though we pushed 6 months of the rate reform for DDS. I was not happy with it. But I wasn't naive to say, I recognize we need to do some cuts. We weren't othering people. We just said, hey, we need to postpone it a little bit. It sucked, but I did it. But when we other people, that's not equity. That's not inclusion. And you're putting people in a hierarchy. And I would never put anyone in a hierarchy. So I will continue to lead through those lens for as long as people let me, or as long as people put tape. Whenever someone puts a tape over my mouth. So far, there's been no tape. So I'll continue to vocalize that. But I think short and simple is that's a North Star for me. And I say as a social worker and as a Marine, like, you have a compassionate fighter with my Marine Corps background to never back down, and the social work kind of hard to just move forward.
Do you find that it's hard to talk about equity and inclusion, especially just given the things that are occurring with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging initiatives being dismantled? Like I did a prior podcast with the LA Commissioners on Disabilities, LA Commission on Disabilities. And I remember, we had that discussion. And I was like, it's kind of a difficult space right now to continuously talk about inclusion and equity, just given almost in some ways, those can be words that people don't want to use anymore. But 100%, it's why I'm in this role, right? So it's hard not to, and it seems like it feels your passion too. Yeah. So how can we navigate that?
There are a lot of internal conversations, even yesterday, internal conversations amongst members. And this is a topic that we bring up on, are we going to continue to hold our ground, or are we going to bend? Some people, whatever reason, will bend. It's survival. I get it. People are just trying to survive. Is it difficult for some people? Yes. But this is such a simple thing that if this is difficult, then we're no way in the world going to be able to survive on the bigger issues. These are just words. We're not, so I'm only speaking for myself. I can't stop using those words. Like, that's behind so much of the work we do. Like, what do you mean? Like, diverse means you, me. Like, diverse means including different kind of people at the table. It doesn't mean excluding people. It literally just means bringing more people into the fold. So again, only speaking as me, maybe Caroline, or just the senators, Menjivar, but I can't back down from those kind of words. Those are crucial to the things that we do.
And I think the community definitely appreciates those sentiments. So I appreciate that as well. Last question is, you're a dedicated public servant with a powerful story. I know that we are very public-facing, you especially, but I guess outside of the Capitol, we're wondering, what is something personal or joyful that keeps you grounded?
Yes. I love to read. I'm a reader.
I already know Harry Potter's.
Yeah. I'm actually listening to Harry Potter again on audiobooks right now. I'm on book 5. I think I do it like once a year. I just need to go through them again. But like last week, we had to stay in Sacramento one extra day that wasn't common. So I had a day that usually is when I fly back. So I had nothing really scheduled. I got off at 12. I went to buy a book. I went to the American River, put a chair in the middle of the river, and I read my book. And like stuff like that just decompresses me. I can fight every single day. I need like a couple of hours or a day to decompress, and I'll start again. I am very in tune, or my wife helps me to ground myself. She's a licensed marriage family therapist, so mental health is really important. Keep your sanity for the next day, that you got to be crazy. So reading books are really important for me. I love like murder mysteries, dragons, romance. And then I go to the movies a lot. Last night I went to the movies. I watched 28 Years Later because I remember watching the first one I was younger. And I travel often. I think that helps with the intersectionality. Looking at different cultures. I don't want to be in a bubble just because the way we do it, it's not always the right way. Immersing myself in other cultures is really fun. So I have a Disney cruise to Alaska in a couple of weeks. And that's what I need to do, just to find myself and remind myself, keep myself grounded. My wife keeps me grounded because in Sacramento, people grow your head. You're like, oh, Cindy, you're amazing. Blah, blah, blah. You know, lobbyists. And my wife is like, you're just a human. So she grounds me.
It's always our spouses that ground us, right?
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, you still have to wash the dishes.
Yeah. Yes.
So I get it. No, absolutely. I love it. And I love the playful spirit all the time with the Disney cruise.
Yeah, yes, 100%.
Because I think that makes you relatable.
Ah, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.